When Bruno returned to the shelter for the 12th time, the sound he made didn't even sound like a bark anymore. It was something deeper, a low, shaking cry that made every person in the room stop what they were doing. You could feel it in your chest, like his heart had already accepted that no one was ever coming back for him. 12 times, 12 homes, 12 promises that ended with the same story. At first, everyone thought he was just another sad case of bad luck. Maybe too big, too loud, or just not the right fit. But when you've been through that door a dozen times, something doesn't add up. And that's when Mary, the shelter director, decided enough was enough. She was gonna find out what was really happening to Bruno. Late one night, surrounded by stacks of old adoption forms and return reports, Mary started digging through his history like a detective at the scene of a crime. Page after page, the same patterns kept showing up. Families that seemed fine, vague excuses, didn't fit in, too anxious, needs more space. None of them made sense. That's when one of the volunteers, Jane, leaned over and said, "You ever notice they all avoid saying what really went wrong?" That sentence was the spark, the beginning of a storm. Mary started calling every one of Bruno's previous adopters. Most didn't pick up. Some hung up. One woman, Mrs. Anderson, finally answered. At first, she sounded normal, but the longer the conversation went on, the shakier her voice became. "He just didn't work with our family," she said. Mary pressed her gently. "Was he aggressive?" Silence. Then a nervous laugh. "No, not aggressive. Just unsettling." And that was it. The woman hung up. Something was seriously wrong. Mary drove to the address listed on the file. It was perfect. Too perfect. Trimmed lawn, spotless windows, a garden that looked straight out of a magazine. But no one answered the door. After knocking 3 times, she tried peeking through a window. The place was empty. No furniture, no people, just a faint smell of bleach and something she couldn't quite name. So she went to the neighbors. That's when the story cracked open. One elderly neighbor said, "There was always barking from that house, but not the normal kind. It was scared barking, like the dogs were crying." Another neighbor admitted she used to hear scratching at night, then the curtains would slam shut. And just like that, the mystery stopped being about bad luck and started sounding like abuse. Mary contacted Animal Control and filed a welfare report. Officer Sanchez agreed to investigate. When the call came back days later, his voice was tight. "Nothing illegal found," he said, "but the house is cleaned out, like they moved in a hurry." Mary felt sick. Bruno stayed quiet that night, curled in the corner of his kennel. The staff had stopped seeing him as a rescue case. He was a ghost, a victim of something no one could name. Then the vet called her in. They had run a scan on Bruno during his latest checkup, and there it was, a tiny scar on the back of his neck, so small you'd miss it unless you were looking for it. The vet's face was pale when he said it. "There's a microchip here that doesn't belong to any registered shelter. It's corporate, not domestic. Someone's been experimenting." Bruno hadn't just been abandoned by families. He'd been used, sold, returned. Over and over. A test subject in disguise. Every adoption had been a setup, a new stage in someone's sick behavioral experiment. Mary froze. The puzzle pieces slammed together. Every time Bruno had been returned, it wasn't because something was wrong with him. It was because he was escaping. Animal Control reopened the investigation, and the evidence that surfaced was horrifying. The Andersons weren't just a family. They were linked to a research group that used home environments for behavioral testing on animals rescued from shelters. Bruno wasn't broken. He was surviving. When they shut that operation down, Mary visited Bruno's kennel. For the first time, his eyes didn't look empty. He watched her, head tilted, waiting. She sat beside him and said, "You're never leaving again." That was the day Bruno stopped crying. And if this story doesn't wreck you a little, think about this. Bruno's pain wasn't because people didn't want him. It was because they used him, and he still kept trusting. He still believed someone good would come back. If that doesn't say everything about what animals can teach us, nothing will. So if this story hit you the way it hit me, hit like, subscribe, and share this one with someone who needs to be reminded that loyalty doesn't need words. Because sometimes the loudest cries aren't for help, they're for hope.